Not too long ago, I picked up this piece of walnut and I wanted to make a serving tray out of it, a cutting board, probably be used for both. And I really like that it has some live edge over in here that I want to show off. And on the back here, it has a crack. And I've never done bow ties before, but I want to play around with them and make some to put in here. I like the look of bow ties, not everybody does, but I wanted to put it in for strength and because I like the looks of them. So, let's get started.
My piece of walnut was really warped, so I used the jointer to get it flat. I drew pencil marks before planing to make sure that I got it all even. I used melamine for my form since it was cheap and easier to keep the epoxy from sticking to. Yikes! Don't know how I messed that cut up. And that's why my charcuterie board was a little smaller than I planned. I calculated the amount of epoxy I would need by getting an average on the width, and I used a volume calculator app that I found on my phone. I applied some fast dry epoxy to the edge that will be against the epoxy pour. This was to help prevent bubbles and also keep the colored epoxy from dyeing the wood. I used shellac on all of the other edges because it was cheaper and it also keeps the epoxy from adhering to the wood very well. I used sandpaper to rough up the live edge. This was to help it adhere to the epoxy pour. I used caulking to seal all of the edges. I forgot to order mold release, so I applied Vaseline to help keep the epoxy from sticking to the mold. I clamped down the walnut so not much epoxy could squeeze underneath it. Using a syringe, I put epoxy in the cracks. No epoxy leaked out, which was great for my first pour. However, I did not account for the edges that the epoxy seeped into, so I had to pour more epoxy the next morning. I used a torch to remove the bubbles. Had I used mold release, this process probably would have gone smoother. Using the drum sander with 60 grit, I got the board flat. Then I moved over to the hand sander. Epoxy is probably the messiest product that I have ever used. Sanding exposed some holes in the wood, so I used CA glue and accelerator to patch them. I put a 1/8 inch round over on all the edges and finger holes using my router. I sanded from 120 grit up to 1000 grit, making sure to remove all previous sanding marks. My favorite part was putting on the cutting board oil and watching the color pop. This was such a fun build, and I'm so glad that I learned how to do the whole process because I want to make so many other things with epoxy and this look again. I would like to come back and do the bow ties, but I just didn't have time to finish them now, so I will finish them at a later date. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future builds.